We'll be live every day this week from Radio Row, but if you miss a minute of it, don't sweat it. Every episode this week of Happy Hour will air during our Super Bowl Sunday marathon on Peacock. Lock in on the NBC Sports virtual channel from noon to 5 p.m. Eastern to catch up with us before the big game.
And we are excited because here on the Happy Hour, we are now joined by Raiders legend, former NFL MVP Rich Gannon. Of course, you're killing it over there on SiriusXM on NFL Radio. Doing a lot of stuff there. Listened to you and watched you for years. Had you on one of my very first fantasy football teams very much. Thank you very much, by the way. Put up a lot of good stats for my guys as well as the Raiders. You told us just before we sat down, you were at media night last night while Connor and I were at dinner. You
some of us are working.
Doing the real work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
I mean, listen, I did work. I just didn't do any productive work last night. What was your biggest takeaways? Anything you gleaned from any of the players or coaches?
Yeah, it's a great question. I really felt like both teams were pretty relaxed, pretty comfortable. I think both teams were really confident. I think both teams were prepared for the evening. There's a lot of questions that are thrown at you from a lot of different media outlets and a lot of different agendas that people have. We spent some time with Travis Kelce, talked a little bit about Taylor Swift, and he was really gracious to answer some questions. But I just think the players are excited. I mean, you think about this journey to get here. We go through the OTAs and the mini camps and training camp and, a 17-game regular season. We have to get through the playoff games to finally get to this position. There's only 2 teams left standing. When you realize the significance, the enormity of this game, it can be overwhelming for certain players. But I got the sense last night that both teams felt really comfortable with last week's preparation and what lies ahead.
So, Rich, on the Mahomes side of things, and really all Kansas City, obviously Andy Reid, Chris Jones, veterans that have been there, the experience. They've been here before. They've won in this situation before. You're a guy that had that competitive advantage. You beat my New York Jets when I was a kid and had that experience going into multiple playoff games. What is that like compared to a guy on the other end that isn't going to have that experience under center?
I think postseason experience is really important. I think particularly in a game like this, I think, you look at Andy Reid's they've been 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, so they know what to do in these games. They know what the preparation looks like. On the other side of it, Brock Purdy experiencing it for the first time. But when you watch Brock Purdy come in to a game 2 years ago against Miami and play as well as he did, and the following week go up against Tom Brady and not flinch, my sense is this moment's not going to be too big for him. I think that he's got incredible poise. He's got a lot of the qualities and the intangibles you love at that position. I do think overall team experience and experience at that position matters, but I think it's going to be a close game. I really do.
Can you relate to this at all? I mean, because you led the Raiders to Super Bowl XXXVII, where you guys played the Buccaneers, and it's interesting. So not that anyone's Brock Purdy, because he's Mr. Irrelevant and he's starting a Super Bowl, but you were a 4th-round pick. You weren't drafted to be a quarterback. I don't think people realize this. You were a punter in college.
Right.
You know what I mean? So when you were coming to the pros, the expectation wasn't that you were going to be a quarterback, and as a 4th-rounder, there wasn't the expectation that a first, number 1 overall first rounder, and then obviously you proved yourself and, set many great records for the Raiders. But getting into that first Super Bowl, is there still that chip on your shoulder where you're like, I've still got to prove, I've got to be here,
yeah.
that maybe Purdy has something there that Mahomes doesn't?
No question. It took me a lot longer than it's taken Brock Purdy for one, but yeah, I think you always, there's always that intensity that, what drives a player to be great. And I think, you want to play in the biggest games and you want to win Super Bowls. And I think Brock Purdy looks across the field and sees Patrick Mahomes, a guy that is arguably the best player in our game right now. And then you look at the success that he's had, and I think you want that, right? I mean, competing against, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady over the years, I mean, you see the success, you crave it, right? Not necessarily the individual success, but the team success. And I think Brock's done a great job, I think, compartmentalizing it, I think handling it, deflecting attention away from himself and back onto his teammates and the coaching staff. So, I would expect he would go out and play well. I would simply say this. He cannot play like he has the last 2 weeks and expect to win. You cannot be asleep in the first half against Green Bay and Detroit and come back and play a different game in the second half and win. He's going to have to put 4 really good quarters of football together.
And I would argue, honestly, he's going to face the toughest test. I would argue the Chiefs' defense is much better than, all due respect, than the Lions or the Packers' defense as well. One of the things I've said, I'm curious your thoughts on this, I think this is a legacy game for Brock Purdy. I don't think it matters what Patrick Mahomes does in this game. He's already cemented as one of the greatest to ever play the game. He could he could go 0 for 20 in this game and throw 5 picks, and he's still Patrick Mahomes in all capital letters, multiple Super Bowl winner. But I think if Brock Purdy, goes out and beats him, cements his legacy. And if he goes out and lays an egg, then I think there's going to be a lot more questions about him.
Well,
is that fair?
I would simply say this. You don't know when you're going to get a second opportunity, if you're ever going to get one. I mean, my first year in 1987, we went to the NFC Championship game. I was not the starting quarterback, but I was a member of the Minnesota Vikings. I thought, that's pretty good. Probably be back next year. Never happened. Didn't get back to a championship game. That was 87. I didn't get back to a championship game until 2000. And that was against the Ravens. And I got separated shoulder and wasn't able to finish that game. And then didn't get to a Super Bowl in 2002. I was 37 years old. So, there are no guarantees that you're going to get back. When you get here, you have to maximize your opportunity and your chances of success. And that's what makes this game so special.
Rich, before the show, Matthew and I were having a conversation about the quarterbacks where it's gone so differently than Brock Purdy, right? The guys that were drafted with high expectations, and it hasn't worked out for them, whether it's for individual reasons, team reasons. A lot goes wrong in the NFL. Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, Bryce Young, which only 1 year, but still in that bucket, Zach Wilson. Out of those former first-rounders, who do you think has the best chance to really turn their career around and get this right?
Wow. I think all those situations are different. I think Bryce Young, there's not a lot of 5'10" quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, Carolina knew that. It's a big man's game. I think Zach Wilson went through a lot, and I think all the change around him. He played before he was ready to play. I think he lost confidence. The coaches lost confidence. The players lost confidence. The fans lost confidence. He's got to be rehabilitated, if that makes any sense. Yeah. Who else was on that list?
Mac Jones and then Kenny Pickett.
So, I think Mac Jones, here's another dysfunctional situation. 3 coordinators in 3 years. This will be his 4th different coordinator in 4 years. I call that the Alex Smith syndrome. Alex had 5 different coordinators his first 5 years. It's not the way you develop a young quarterback. Kenny Pickett, he's had 2 different play callers this year. He'll have another one next year. I mean, it's just, I would say of all of them, I like Kenny Pickett. Okay. I think Kenny has to smooth out some of the rough edges in his game. I think he has to learn to protect himself and stay on the field for all 17 games. And he can't have these up and down, he can't have these lulls where he's missing an action for a couple weeks. But I think he has the most upside.
So I want to go rapid fire with you. Obviously, when you watch quarterback play in the NFL, you watch it differently than Connor and I or anyone else that hasn't played the game at the highest levels that you have. So I'm curious, I want to give you rapid fire some guys that we think are sort of middle of the pack, and by that I mean they have shown flashes of brilliance, but there are questions around them for one way or the other.
I was one of those guys.
Right. So we thought this was perfect for you. Can any of these guys, and we'll go by one, and can any of them become Rich Gannon, who became an NFL MVP and led their team to the Super Bowl? Can either do one of those 2 things? Okay. Jared Goff.
Oh, for sure. I think Jared Goff is misunderstood. I don't think he gets enough credit for being a tough guy. Physically and mentally, he plays every week. I think he went to a very bad situation and turned it into a good one. If you can protect Jared Goff, he can win a Super Bowl.
Baker Mayfield, tough, gritty. He's overcome a lot in his career. I think he's been humbled by the experience he went through in Cleveland and in Carolina, and having to go to Tampa and battle for the starting job. I think he's earned the respect of the coaches and players there. I think you can win a Super Bowl with Baker Mayfield, although I'd rather have Jared Goff. Trevor Lawrence.
I like Trevor Lawrence a lot. I'm a little concerned. He took a step back this year. Decision-making is an area where he has to get better. I think situational football, 3rd down, handling the pressure, not relying so much on his feet, but being better from the pocket. I think you can win a Super Bowl with him. I think he has the benefit of having Doug Peterson around him. He's a really good football coach, and they've made significant changes on the defensive side of the ball. I do like Trevor Lawrence.
Justin Fields. What should the Bears do?
I think Justin Fields has some issues functioning as a pocket passer, and I think, too often, and I was guilty of this, we rely on what we're most comfortable with, what we do best, and that's him utilizing his legs. This is the NFL. They're going to set the edge. They're going to force you to sit in there as a pocket passer at some point and make the difficult throws. He doesn't anticipate well. He doesn't process very well at times. And to me, if that can't improve, then he's going to struggle. I would suggest the Bears draft a quarterback.
Fair enough. Last one for me, because I'm a diehard Washington fan. I know you played for what the Commanders used to be called back in the day for a little bit. So Sam Howell And then also, should I have confidence in this new upcoming staff?
So let me talk about Sam Howell. Anybody who's not sure whether Sam Howell can play or not, I would simply tell them to grab the tape of the 2 Eagle games, the one in Philadelphia and the one in Washington, if you don't think this kid can play in the NFL. I don't think Eric Bieniemy helped them this year. I think protection was awful. I think when you look at the number of sacks that they had, just a lot of issues from a schematic and from a structural standpoint. I think Sam Howell can play. I'm worried about when we continue to move pieces around with a young quarterback, when you have a new coordinator and new play callers come in. But I'm excited about Dan Quinn. I'm excited about the coaching staff they put together there. I think they're starting from scratch. There's a lot of rebuilding that's an organization that's really starting from ground zero. They've got a lot of ground to make up on the rest of the NFC East.
My other point on Howell is he was constantly a negative game script.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that defense was so brutally bad.
Yep.
Howell was always down, and so it was like every defense is
I
like,
think
we know you're throwing, we got to just tee off on you.
I think the kid can play, and it's funny, I talked to another quarterback evaluator who I really, really respect, and that's a guy he really likes, Sam Howell.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.